Welcome everyone to the 18th weekend retreat, which has been held here in Woking. 18 times, you can imagine, goes back a few years. The last time I was on a retreat here was number 12, I think. So that's going back about 5 years. Yeah. This evening, we have a mixture in our audience. Some of us are going the full length for the 3 days of the retreat. Some are coming and going, depending on their arrangements at home. And some are just joining for the full moon retreat. Generally, our retreats start out with a candle lighting ceremony of some sort. So in order that we make full use of our candles, I have combined the full moon meditation with the opening ceremony for our 18th retreat. And the way we're going to start today is with a little bit of an introduction to meditation. And for those of you who may be completely new to meditation, I'll backtrack a little bit just to say that if you've not meditated before, you probably heard it's great and all the wonderful benefits of meditation, but it may not be obvious how to actually do meditation. And in this respect, I'd like to say that with meditation, we're working with a part of ourselves that we often neglect. Not our physical being, but our awareness or the spiritual part of our being. It's not a part of yourself that you can see. It's not a part of yourself that you can go to your GP and get an X-ray of. It's not even something you could find in an MRI scan. But it's something which we know about subjectively, because from day to day, the feeling we have inside about our lives or how things are going in our life changes. We have ups and downs from day to day. Nothing to do with our physical well-being, but something very subjective. It's also a part of ourselves that gets pulled away by the things which distract us in our lives. Often we get completely hijacked by the things around us which are competing for our attention the whole of the time. So our awareness, or you might call it our mind for short, or you might call it the focus of your attention, is something which can feel different from day to day. And it's something which can get pulled around by the things around us, especially if we lead very busy or responsible lives. So this is the part of ourselves that we are trying to work with by meditation. And the principle of meditation, although there are many different sorts of ways of meditating, is that if you can refocus your awareness back within the space of your body, especially at the point you can see down in the area of the solar plexus, then the longer you can keep your awareness in that place, the more relaxed the mind will become, the more subjectively positive that part of yourself will feel. Obviously, if you're working with a part of yourself you can't see and you can't have any evidence of, then that presents some difficulties normally, dealing with an imaginary part of yourself. So different sorts of meditation use some sort of object of meditation to relocate the mind. Sometimes you may have heard of focusing on the breath when meditating. It's a common way of working with the mind. You don't work with the mind directly, but you get your awareness to focus on your breath. And because the breath is going in and out within the space of the body, then for as long as your mind is on your breath, then it will be somewhere within your body. Hence, the mind will start to become more relaxed. In our meditation lineage, however, we get even simpler than that. We work with an image of some sort. And I say it's simpler because at least it stays still. It's not always moving like the breath. And the sort of thing we work with is to imagine a picture such as the sun shining, picture of the sun shining in the sky, but we take that picture of the sun and we bring it within the space of our body, and the mind will follow. Why? Because only for as long as the mind is on the picture will the picture stay with us. If our mind gets distracted, the picture disappears. For some people it's a picture, for others it may be more of a feeling. Either way of keeping your mind on the object will work just as well. So you may feel the warmth of the sun, the presence of the sun, without actually seeing it. That also will work perfectly well. And today, to go back to real basics, we are going to not go directly to the center of the body, but we are going to go via a pathway of 7 what are called bases, which helps us to manage the transition between focusing where we normally focus with our eyes and focusing within ourselves. We're going to make that transition gradually. So what we do with this imagined object is we start at our nostril, later on the left, gentle on the right. If you are not happy with that, you can try mixing it up and see if it makes a difference. We start there, we make the object as bright and clear as we can or as realistic as we can. And to keep the mind free of thought, we often work with a mantra in this tradition, using the mantra with the words Samma Arahang. If you're not happy with that one, then you can make up your own one. But having some sort of verbal input in the mind helps to dispel the thoughts more quickly than if you just leave the thoughts to their own devices. So, first point, bring the object to our nostril, mantra 3 times, not out loud, just in our imagination again, and then moving it backwards inside our nose. And this is why I say generally starting out with a small size of sun is good, and then it won't get stuck in your nose halfway. Second one is up at the bridge of your nose, corner of your eye, ladies on the left, gentlemen on the right. Stops there, we make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. From there we're moving directly backwards inside our head, to the center of our head. From this point onwards, your eyes are definitely not going to be any use to you anymore, so please use your imagination, don't try swiveling your eyes backwards in your head. Mantra 3 times, and then moving downwards now on your central axis, down to your palate. Roof of your mouth, number 4. Down to your Adam's apple, number 5. Then all the way down within your body, down to the level of your navel. At the center of your body rather than on the surface, and then going upwards again, just 2 finger breadths to the final point, which we're talking about with the solar plexus, point number 7. And I introduce this to you as something which you may not need right now, but if you are ever particularly up in the air or finding difficulty in meditation at any time during the retreat or at any time in your home life, then this is a very good technique to fall back on for those days when it's not obvious where the center of your body has got to. So today we'll be meditating using this technique to start ourselves off until we can get our awareness down to the center of the body. And because it's our opening ceremony and full moon meditation today, halfway through the meditation we have a little sort of interlude where we keep our meditation going, but we bring our candle lights. You notice we have them close at hand there to put on the table halfway through. When you hear the music or whatever, yes. And these ones you don't have to set light to. You just twist them clockwise on the holder and they come on and flicker. Yes, the flickering is intentional. And then we sit back to meditate a little bit further, to practice what's known as loving kindness meditation, which is where we take the brightness or the feeling that we've built up in our meditation and spread it outwards for the benefit of all living beings. So normally the total meditation time will be about 45 minutes, and from there I have a little wisdom talk tagged on the end on the theme of spiritual resilience today, and after that then we get down to the real nitty-gritty of the orientation for the meditation retreat. So far so good. Are you sitting comfortably? So if you like to take the full moon as your meditation object, that's also fine as well, appropriate for the occasion, or a star or a diamond, whatever you find easiest to imagine. Even a candle light would be appropriate. Some people sit for meditation cross-legged, which is fine. We sit with our back fairly straight. Generally, half lotus position is the ideal posture which we talk about for meditation practice. If you're sitting on a chair, then try to sit fairly upright. Having a fairly straight back will help you to breathe easily and also to find the center of your body easily. The way we put our hands together is with the right hand on top of the left hand, the index finger of the right hand going up against the thumb of our left hand. It's a little tip in order to avoid falling asleep halfway through our meditation. Generally, our finger will slip to give us some warning before that happens. And our hands just rest palms in our lap. If we get uncomfortable partway through, then that's not a big deal. We just adjust our posture. And although I talk about a formal sitting position, but in practice, what we're trying to do is to get comfortable enough to be able to forget about our body so that our mind can make that inner journey more easily. So we start by settling ourselves down into a comfortable position for our meditation. If you're sitting cross-legged, then with your right leg over your left leg, your right hand over your left hand, the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, and your hands palm upwards in your lap. Or you can adopt any other looser variation of the position which helps you to feel more comfortable for your meditation, including sitting on a chair. The important thing is to feel alert and yet relaxed. We close our eyes very gently, closing our eyes in much the same way we'd close them to go to sleep. We adjust our body so that our breathing and circulation are relaxed and unimpeded, to minimize any possible aches or pains, anything that might disturb the continuity of your attention. And with each meditation, we start by taking a few moments to make sure each and every muscle of our body is as relaxed as possible. Relax every muscle, starting with the muscles of our forehead, our eyebrows, our eyelids. And once again, we take special care to make sure that our eyes are only very gently closed. We relax the muscles of our face, our neck, letting our shoulders drop to their natural height before relaxing our arms, forearms, and then our hands and fingers, relaxing them all completely. Continue on down by relaxing the muscles of our chest, trunk, and abdomen, and both of our legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes. So that all the way from the top of our head, right the way down to the tips of our toes, there's no remaining part of our body with any sort of stress or tension anymore. If we do notice anywhere where tension or stress still remains in our body, then we do our best to relax it completely. Because the body that is completely relaxed will have the feeling as if it seems to melt away into the atmosphere around us. And we'll have no more worries about our body anymore, so that we can turn our attention instead to relaxing the mind. We relax the mind by letting go of all thoughts about the things in our lives. Just for a few moments we put aside any worries or concerns, not letting our awareness wander to thoughts of work, friends, family, studies, or any other thing. Keeping our mind on the task in hand, the task of training the mind, while at the same time filling the mind with thoughts of happiness and joy. Filling our mind with a sense of happiness and joy, as if our mind were completely filled with tiny particles of happiness and joy. Filling our mind to the point that there's no room left in the mind for anything else, while making our mind spacious, light, radiant, and refreshed. Because these are the qualities of a mind that would be ready and waiting for the harmony and unity which we embark upon with the meditation ahead. And once we feel relaxed both in body and in mind, very gently, using no effort at all, we remember back to that picture of a bright object that we had a few moments ago. A bright object such as that of the shining sun, a shining full moon, a star, a diamond, crystal ball, perhaps a candle flame. Whatever we find easiest to imagine. We imagine a picture of that bright object as if it's floating a short distance in front of our face. It may be something that we see in our mind's eye, or it may be something that we feel by its presence. Just as if it's floating a short distance in front of our face. Imagining it effortlessly while reducing the object of our choice down in size until it's only 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter and floating in front of our nose. In front of the left nostril for ladies, in front of the right nostril for gentlemen. Floating in front of our nose at a point that we call the first base of the mind. We make the object as realistic as we can, whether we see it or feel it. At the same time, hearing the sound of the mantra in our mind, silently with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, or equivalent. And from the entrance to our nose, we make the shining object move slowly backwards and smoothly inside our nose, Inside the left nostril for ladies, inside the right nostril for gentlemen. Moving slowly inside the nostril until it reaches a point inside our nose, next to the corner of the eye, where once again it stops at a point we call the second base of the mind. We make the object as realistic as we can, while hearing the sound of the mantra Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. And then the bright object moves slowly backwards inside our head, backwards on a horizontal plane, until it comes to a point at the precise center of our skull, the very center of our head, at a point we call the third base of the mind. Here again the object comes to a standstill. We make the object as realistic as we can, while repeating to ourselves the mantra Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. Now the bright object is moving gently downwards from the center of our head, until it comes to a point at the roof of our mouth, at our palate, a point known as the fourth base of the mind. And here the bright object stops once again. We make the object as realistic as we can, while at the same time repeating the sound of the mantra to ourselves with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. And again the bright object moves directly downwards inside our throat, until it reaches a point just above the Adam's apple, a point known as the fifth base of the mind. Here the bright object comes to a standstill, and we make it as realistic as we can, while at the same time repeating the sound of the mantra to ourselves with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. And now the bright object continues on its journey downwards, this time into the space of our body, as if inside ourselves were just a hollow cavity, moving deeper down inside our chest, down inside our trunk, eventually reaching into the space of our abdomen. And if at the central part of our body we imagine two thin threads, one thread running from our navel in a horizontal plane directly through our back, a second thread on the same plane running from the left side to the right side, and those two threads will come to an intersection at a point in the center of the body, a point known as the sixth base of the mind. We move our bright object downwards until it comes to the intersection of the two threads, the point in the center of our stomach. Once again the object stops still, and we make the object as realistic as we can, while at the same time hearing the sound of the mantra passing through the mind with the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. And from that sixth point, we now move the bright object slowly upwards up was the distance of 2 finger breadths from the intersection of the 2 threads to a point known as the 7th base of the mind. And having reached this point, in fact, we will not be moving the object anywhere else, because this is the true center of the body, point of equilibrium for body and mind. So from this point onwards, we just maintain our inner object at this point as continuously as we can for as long as we can, while hearing the sound of the mantra coming up as if the source of the sound were that point in the center of the body. Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again. We may find that the mind slips away from the object occasionally, in which case we just bring it back each time. If the inner object disappears, we can conjure up a new one. But if it changes, then we just follow it in its new form. As time goes on, simply through the power of that continuity at the center of the body, we find that the images in the mind will become gradually clearer. Also, the feelings in the mind will become gradually clearer to us. The strange thing is that the number of thoughts in the mind will become gradually less. Less and less until the mind can come to what is known as a standstill at the center of the body, which is a state where no more thoughts arise in the mind. In the beginning, we may find that the mind has a tendency to wander, sometimes wandering to the sounds around us, thoughts in our head, or sensations in the body. But don't feel disappointed if the mind should wander at this stage. Just bring the mind back again to the inner object at the center and recommence with the mantra without thinking too much about it, until the mind starts to build up a sense of familiarity with the center of the body and the sound of the mantra, until the mind stays at that point almost by second nature. If at some point in our meditation we find that the sound of the mantra seems to die down all by itself, and the thoughts don't return anymore, then we can just remain with that inner object in silence, as continuously as we can, with a light and gentle attention for a few more moments until we come to the appropriate time. And that sense of inner brightness has become adjusted to the position at the center of our body. We continue to maintain our awareness at the center of the body the whole the time, with whatever inner experience we have built up for ourselves at that point. We continue to remain in that ocean of peace energy, while at this point we can slowly open our eyes in order to light the little candles that we have prepared for ourselves. So now is the time for us to illuminate the world by lighting the little candles that we have prepared, feeling that the candlelight, radiating warm and bright, can symbolize our inner light, our peace energy, and our positive intention, especially in honor of the full moon of March this month, and also as an opening ceremony for our 18th weekend meditation retreat here at the Meditation Center in Woking. So if you'd like to light up the candles now. To place on the tables as well. They can be placed on the U-shaped tables around the central feature there. Like a glorious light, my mind inside is candle bright. Placed our candles, we can remember as well as we can the picture of the candles and return to our place to continue with our meditation. Light, my mind inside is candle bright. Come we all come to intensify our light. Come and gather and add to the candle light and be the light of Dhammakaya. This evening, we close our eyes once again and bring the light of the candle in our imagination back inside us to that special point at the center of ourselves, letting that candlelight represent the loving kindness, the positive energy and good intentions that we have inside us. As the mind becomes free of thought once again, we allow it to connect with that sense of peacefulness inside us that we have generated. Both the light and the feeling seem to go hand in hand. mind becomes more and more free of extraneous thoughts. That sense of peace inside us will transform into loving kindness, compassion, good wishes and positive intention, both for ourselves and all the other people we know, all the other living beings that we know. Do you realize that any sense of love and compassion for others in the world has to start with ourselves, start within our own minds? Otherwise, the sense of compassion or loving kindness is nothing more than an idea. But a sharing of that positivity generated in our own minds is something where we can use meditation as a starting point, generating that inner light, the equivalent of the flickering light that we see in the outside world, but this time coming from our own hearts and minds, spreading outwards to sustain and generate light and hope outwards into the world. So we allow the inner light at the center of ourselves to expand outwards from that central point, almost by touching gently at the center, with a touch so gentle it is almost like there's a melting away at the point of contact, allowing solid to become liquid and liquid to become vapor, spreading outwards, rarefying, expanding outwards in all directions, initially to fill our entire body and being. With the wish that we may be well and happy, free from suffering. That the cultivation of meditation on this full moon night or on this weekend retreat bring us true happiness, benefit and fulfillment in life. And we allow that inner light or feeling of well-being to expand further beyond the boundaries of our own body, outwards into the room around us. Outwards further still, like an aura or a halo, to the whole of the building, the whole neighborhood, with all the living beings, all the sentient beings in this area, reaching all of them too, sharing that sense of compassion, loving kindness, positive intention. Wider still to the whole city, whole county, whole nation, across the whole continent, to all the continents of the world, sharing this light, love and peace energy to whoever is within reach, with the wish that all those living beings live free from danger, sadness, suffering of all kinds. May all beings be free from sadness and sorrow. May joy, bliss and happiness spread in the heart of every sentient being. And allow that positivity to spread outwards from our mind in the same way that the rays of light spread outwards from the full moon to every person, every living being, regardless of race, religion or creed, sharing this sense of universal love and the wish for them to be free from harm. In the same way that the light of the little individual candles joins together into a much greater brightness, then the small intentions that we cultivate in each of our own hearts can join together to connect throughout the world, radiating loving kindness to form a worldwide tide for peace and good on our planet, expanding beyond borders, boundaries, to every sentient being, reaching out further to our friends, family, and loved ones, whether they are here or elsewhere, with the affirmation that they find comfort and love in that loving kindness that we share. So we expand this light and energy beyond all limits, outwards flowing in all directions, on the basis of the positive intentions we cultivated together today, for a few more moments in silence. Pe Buddha Palapata Pacchekanan Balang Arahantanancha Dejena Rakam Bandami Sappaso Sappa Buddhanupavena Sappa Dhammanupavena Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before finishing your practice. So I hope that the meditation went well for everyone, particularly for those who are newcomers to meditation practice. Okay? Do you manage to find your way all the way down to number 7? A few people got lost on the way. If that happens to you, then just pick up where you left off and continue on down until you do get to the number 7. But generally I only do this practice once on a retreat, and I trust you to be able to find your way there the next time round. And you can pick up at the number 7 immediately after relaxing body and mind on subsequent meditations. Yes. So this third full moon of the year comes very close to our spring or vernal equinox, start of astronomical spring, at least in the northern hemisphere. To say that for those who are not of this hemisphere joining us today. And in Eastern Europe, they used to have lots of rites of spring about this time, strange things like in Poland, the drowning of Marzana, the effigy of the spring goddess, and burying various things to hasten the approach of spring. And Valkyries, have you heard of them? They tend to be very active in the pagan calendar at this time of the year. And in Latvia, apparently, even before they'd heard of things like Easter, they had lots of egg-related traditions at this time of year, celebrating the victory of light over darkness. And around this time of year, the full moon that we see out tonight is actually been given a special name, at least on the other side of the Atlantic, as the worm moon. I'm sure you're not particularly enthusiastic about worms, but apparently this is the time of the year that you do start to see them again. The worm's moon is the name that was being given to this. But other alternative names for the moon that we see are the eagle moon, the goose moon, the crow comes back moon, the sugar moon, because the sap rises this time of the year in the maples, the wind strong moon, and the Surrey's moon from the blinding rays of sunlight that reflect off the melting snow. And even though in the Christian calendar most things go according to the solar calendar, but the calculation of where Easter falls in the year, actually the moon has some connection with that as well. So Easter is not far off because it falls before the equinox. Instead of the partial full moon, it's called the Lenten moon. Yes, this one that we see. So it's an interesting time to start our meditation retreat. The theme I wanted to talk about, apart from nice bluebells and that sort of thing, couldn't resist, is more on the subject of building spiritual resilience, which is something which I think all of us want, or perhaps all of us feel the need for, maybe more as we try to emerge, not only as with our snowdrops and so on, but actually emerge from the pandemic as well. A lot of us are feeling rather different as people coming out of a pandemic than when we went in, and a lot of us have had time to reflect on ourselves, being with ourselves, maybe being with loved ones in much closer quarters than we've been used to for a whole 2 years. And some of us may feel that we have more spiritual resilience as a result. Some of us may just feel the need for more of it. I think I'm probably in the latter category. But as the workout shirts say, if we have the power of mind over matter, then we are better equipped to deal with anything that needs resilience. Because strengthening ourselves can come from many strategies that we can have. And sometimes if we don't have the strength within ourselves, then we have to rely on other things to help to boost that sense of strength within us. The first strategy, the first of two I would say, I'm going to say very briefly this evening, is that there are several practices alongside meditation that we can use to give ourselves a thicker skin when it comes to being more resilient in the face of change and uncertainty in our lives. One of the ways in which we can become more resilient, more thick-skinned, more able to stand firm in the face of change is to put our mind into the sort of place where things that are uncertainty no longer faze us anymore. And one way which is practiced alongside meditation, which is quite useful to make us more used to the idea of uncertainty, is to reflect a little bit, entertain our mind for the first breath we take in the day, as we wake up in the morning, that I'm fortunate to be alive for another day. Because life is so full of uncertainty, we don't know when our time will be up. But the fact that you are here again, you've woken up, and you are fortunate enough to have another day to enjoy the gift of life, it will help you to realize the opportunity for the day ahead that you have. You don't know if you're going to get the same thing tomorrow, but for today, you can make the most of the time you have. Another example of a recollection which you can use just before going to bed is to reflect back over your day, to have some checks and balances over how you feel you've done that day in terms of collecting up positivity or negativity in your life. I know certainly from my own experience that especially where so many of the good things a monk does in their life is part of the daily routine, then sometimes it becomes so routine that you forget to think about it anymore. Maybe for yourselves there's a lot of that in your daily lives as well, where doing good things or positive things, kind things for others becomes so routine that you forget to even think about it anymore. And it's almost as if you don't appreciate it because of that. So personally, what I've tried to do recently is count at least 5 good things I've done that day before I fall asleep at night. And generally I don't get to number 5, falling asleep before. But it's a good way it's a good note to go out on any particular day, which you might try for yourself. If you feel disappointed or inadequate in any way, just counting up those small things. You don't need to count any of the other ones, there may be some. But if you count on just the positive ones, even just 5, it usually does the trick to put yourself in a very positive sense at the end of the day. So that is one way in which you can push back on that sense of uncertainty in life in a way that keeps away that uncertainty at a certain distance, that allows you to still feel good about your life and the fact that each day is a profit in terms of the positivity which you've cultivated in life. Otherwise, unfortunately, the way our mind works is it tends to latch on to faults and negativity, and it doesn't give space for those positive things to get a look in. So we have to change that thinking in order to allow the positivity to find a space to make its way in. If we were talking about our physical well-being, then the second strategy I would suggest would be to do with supplements for your to boost your resilience. But here we're talking about our mind, and the nature of the mind that we're working with is rather strange in that it tends to always gravitate towards the more negative things if it's left to its own devices. Some people have said that this is a survival strategy, to focus on the negative and the worrying and the threatening things in our lives as a way to not take those things for granted. But where we would like to turn the mind towards more positive things, then we have to make the effort to focus on the more positive things wherever we can. You might think that this is kidding yourself, especially after all these negative things are on the news every night, so how come they're not more important? But it's not important for your well-being to be constantly inundated with all that negativity. So just as we might supplement our positivity physically with the vitamins or the minerals or the fiber or the probiotics or whatever, we have to look at the way our mind is affected by the things that we come across in our lives. Because often what the things that life throws at us is not nearly as disconcerting as how we respond to it. And in this connection, there is a nice story from the Buddhist scriptures about someone who had been shot with an arrow. And not just a normal arrow, one that had been dipped in poison. So if it was us, we'd probably be fairly fazed by that. But it turned out that the arrow was not the thing on this person's mind. He was really angry about having been shot with the arrow. In fact, he was so angry that even though the doctor had made it to the point where he could actually help the guy to remove the arrow, he said, "Hang on a minute, before you take that arrow out, I want to know who shot it. I want to know the reason it was shot at me. I also want to know what sort of poison did they use in that arrow." And the guy went on and on with the questions while the doctor was standing by and saying, well, when is this guy going to shut up and just let me get on with the work of actually making the guy better? And this is a little, probably not a true story, but it's a parable by which we can see that sometimes it's the second arrow that really hurts us more. The arrow itself, well, that's a certain degree of pain, but the real thing that gets to us is this questioning and this constant mental chatter that sort of adds to the suffering which we already have from the circumstances we find ourselves in. What we're dealing with meditation, and what I would suggest is like supplementing the quality of your own mind in this particular case, is learning to become more observant about the noise or the response or the reaction which the mind kicks up in response to the negativity that comes into our lives. Because it's often the second arrow which hurts us more. And with meditation, what we've studied today, what we'll be studying further over the course of a 3-day meditation retreat, is learning to deal with that second arrow. We can't stop people shooting arrows at us, but we can stop the mental chatter and the sort of heaping on of pain, suffering and anxiety and worry that comes as a result of the second arrow which we heap upon ourselves. And if we can have what might be termed mental hygiene, in being a little bit more careful about the sort of thoughts we let run riot in our mind as a result of the circumstances thrust upon us, then we can make life a lot more manageable and a lot more easy to be resilient towards as we move through our lives. So I'm not going to say a great deal now, but I will say that next full moon coming up is also coincides with Thai New Year, so-called Songkran. And here we hope to have something on the 16th of April. Whether it is in person, I will announce later, but that will be the theme of our next full moon coming up in April, the Day of Gratitude. The other things which I will tell you about, just for those especially who are with us online, is that every Saturday we have still Zoom meditations between 7 and 8 on British time, and between 8 and 9 on European time. For those of you who find that 3 days is not long enough for you, who want to go for something even longer, in June we have for young gentlemen an ordination scheme which we hope to reinstate this year after having to give it a miss for 2 years. And for those of you who would like to support daily meditation in your lives, I can recommend a free app which you can download onto your mobile, which will allow you to get meditation guidance in English from various monks in our tradition, and it has a timer there which you can follow along with as you're meditating, and maybe you don't want instruction for the whole of the time, you can set the total length of time, and it will have a little chime at the end which will bring you out of your meditation.